This interview is with Emma Weiring. Emma is a student. You're a dual certified certification process student, and that means that you are at GCU right now. And so when you graduate, you'll have two certificates. You'll have a K through 8 elementary certificate and a K through 12 special education certificate. Emma, can you share with us, why did you decide to get the dual certification?
Yeah, so I decided to do dual certification just because I've found that I really have a love for students with disabilities and that need extra help. I've been working with such students, for like at least like the last like 8 years. And when I originally, chose my major, I was just elementary education. And then I was kind of thinking about it, and I like was just reflecting on like I had had so much experience with students with disabilities, like just in high school, that I never like really realized that I was already had such an exposure to just working with these students and everything. And I've just loved it. Like I've always volunteered with them. And I used to babysit some boys that had just extra needs and everything. So I really just found a love for it. And I was like, why not? It's another great thing to have. And now since like adding special education, I've changed my kind of disposition of like, I would love to go into special education first, rather than just like, originally I just wanted that extra thing, but now I'm really like, love it.
That is very neat. And so you had some experience in your high school, having students with disabilities in your class, and then you also would provide assistance to students with disabilities. And so then you went and switched your program here at GCU, and now you have the dual certificate. That's great. So but now when you're student teaching, you'll split your time, and half of your experience will be in a special education classroom and the other half will be in a general education classroom. And are you student teaching next semester?
Yes. Yep. I'll be student teaching spring 2024. So
Okay.
hopefully, I haven't received placements yet, but yes, that first part elementary. And then I'm hoping to do my placement in a self-contained special education classroom at ACES.
So great. Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Actually, now that I know that, we'll have to have a separate conversation about the ACES. I used to work there and I loved it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. So you have had some experience in your field experience, and you also were a para educator to students with disabilities. And so the purpose of this interview is to interview you and understand more of your experiences as a para educator. Can you describe some of the characteristics of the individuals in which you served?
Yes. So I'll start with my background of being a para. So I've done it on two separate occurrences. The first time I was a para educator was in the spring of 2021. So I was a freshman, and I was still like at home and everything, just doing online classes. So I was a para, and I was normally a one-on-one with a sixth grade boy who had very high functioning autism, but mostly struggled with a lot of most motivational aspects just of being in class in school and just following the work. So I was really there for that support of just helping him kind of stay on task and figure out like strategies and interventions to help best support him in that way. And then towards the end of that year, he stopped coming like in person, because that was 2021 was still when schools were doing like the hybrid learning. And he also struggled with a lot of anxiety. So he stopped coming in person. So then my role switched a bit, and I was more of the floater para. So each day I would show up and they would give me a new classroom and a new area to be in. And so that was a little challenging with like communication aspects of with teachers' expectations, because at this point I'm working with 5th through 8th grade in the middle school. And so middle schoolers don't necessarily love to be seen with paras. That was one of the challenges we worked with this 6th grade boy, and that's okay. Like I accept it. You just find different ways. If we need to go work in the hall, if I go out there first and he comes out after or something. But so after he stopped coming, I would work with other students and just adapt to like what they need. Mostly it would be like modifications of assignments or just helping them understand, what is expected of them. And then that same year, I worked one-on-one with a girl going into 9th grade with Down syndrome for summer school. So we did one-on-one summer school. And for her, our big focus was on socializing. So even though she was working at more of like a first or second grade level of just like schoolwork and everything, they still really focused on like having her with her grade level peers, even if it's in like science, like we're sitting there and we're still socializing in that science group, even though that content might not, be appropriate or adequate. But so that was one of the big focuses we did with that student. And
Really
then,
interesting. So so that student cognitively was grade levels below her peers, but she was included in the general education class because she was benefiting by the socialization that occurred.
yes, and I specifically only worked with her during that summer school period. So, educational switch is like a little different. I didn't work with her during the general like school day, but I believe when she was in the general school day, there still was a lot of integration into the normal classroom with her one-on-one para during the school day. I don't exactly know what her coursework looked like at that time, but
I see. How
yeah.
did you work with the general ed teachers in knowing how to modify assignments and which accommodations she needed?
So I made sure that I was communicating like that this girl E would be integrated like into these groups, and that the main goal was to, get her to talk, even though because the general education teachers, like in this specific instance, we're kind of working under the conception and we would be, at our own like spot in a different spot in the classroom doing our own thing, like the two of us. So I would make sure communication was clear, like that we would be a part of that group. And then I would try to modify like the activities in the best way I could, like making sure she is involved in the pieces she could be, like if we are just like reading things as a whole group, like she's still involved in that, and picking up on like information in that way. And this summer school, so I only worked with her for about 2 weeks for this summer school. So the structure looked a little different, but I would say like communication just in like modifying and accommodating was huge in that. And then at other times, when we didn't modify the specific general education like curriculum, we would be doing things back at her desk, which mostly focused on reading, probably I think at a second grade level is what she was working on right then, just with like an audio reader on her iPad. And one of the big things for that too, like she would try to pick, books that she was like above level. And so just making sure that, we're still pushing her in her cognitive rated when, that second teacher comes out and says the exact same words or the exact same thing that I'd been saying, and it works like magic. But I also have to remember, like, it's not about us, and it's what's best for like providing the student and getting them what they need and however that works. So you quickly sometimes just have to push away your own just feelings in like that sense. Because if it did work, it was great. I was like, we just saved so much time with someone helping. So yeah, so we use the walkie-talkie a lot. That common language of like safe and unsafe behaviors. And then using that word like class jobs was a big one. And with this specific student, we also used visual charts or like visual cues, just of a schedule. So she could really prepping her for those transitions since she struggled with them so much. Was just like, okay, in 5 minutes, we're going to music. And then it had like the music symbol or something. So we did a lot of that prepping for her. And then similarly, so with my second one-on-one, I would work with a second grade boy with Down syndrome in the afternoons. And he was integrated a lot more into the general ed classroom. He was in there most of his day, except when he was being pulled out for like specific services. And with Kay, the first grade girl, she did not spend a lot of time in the general education classroom. So at the end of the year when I was working with her, that was one of the really hard pieces, was trying to get her to be in that classroom in the least restrictive environment, like as possible. But that was something that she showed a lot of resistance for. So I think, and that's one of the things like that's really important to make sure we're integrating that least restrictive environment, because I kind of saw the negative effects of what happened when we started her out on so much of like an isolation scale. She like loved that. And so it was super challenging to get her back into the classroom, even during like fun activities or like just stuff like that. But with S, the second grade boy, he was in the classroom I think all parts of the day except for his services. And with him, so he was incredibly intelligent. He could read very well. He was probably one of the best readers like in the second grade class. And that was something interesting to see with his classmates as well, just other kids interacting with students with disabilities, because it would be things like, you know, they struggled with talking in baby voices with him and reading things for him, even though he's at like this super high intelligence level of reading and stuff. And just fluency. So like his free choice activity that he would choose, I mean, 10 times out of 10 would be picking up his geology book.
Really good. I appreciate you so much, Miss Weiring, a wealth of information. And you haven't graduated yet, but you sought out these opportunities to work in the summertime with students who have special needs. And now your future students will have the benefit of your better understanding of different types of students.
Yes, thank you. But I recommend if you're ever given an opportunity to do anything like this, or just para, even if it's like, I just did it for a month, even if it's that, I mean, I've never had so much real raw experience, which I'm very grateful for, to see the other side, just of special education and truly be in it. Like class can only teach us so much and prepare us so much for the real events, but I definitely recommend taking advantage of those opportunities.